Hello, and welcome back to Alice Talks Football. Welcome back to another live Manchester United news, takeover news, transfer news, and general Manchester United discussion show. I do apologise that I haven't been live the last two evenings, but to be honest, there's just not been a whole lot to talk about, and I just didn't want to force a 40-minute long live completely waffling. I'd rather just get into the 8-9 minutes of news the last few days. But there is quite a bit to talk about today, and this is about the Glazers, this is about the takeover, this is about Qatar. This is also about Manchester United reportedly signing Brian Brobbery in January on loan. We'll dive into the transfer news and all of that in a second. But interesting things have come out. There's reports that Qatar could sue the Glazers. Qatar are basically furious with the Glazers because why are the SEC filings saying that Ratcliffe's bid was including this, and that Qatar's bid never showed proof of funds or wasn't going to include this, and that. And obviously the SEC filings cannot lie. If they have lied, then there's going to be legal issues there. So is this Glazer PR spin? Have the Rain Group hidden something from it? Have Qatar been mugged off in this whole takeover? Or was Qatar basically actually just not as serious in using United for PR? There's a lot of question marks around that. But the interesting thing is Avram Glazer is actually under investigation. Now, this has got nothing to do with Qatar or nothing to do with what's gone on with Qatar, but Avram Glazer is actually under investigation because his innovative corp is being investigated by a leading shareholder and a fraud class action firm, and he's obviously the leading shareholder. Like, it might be nothing, but considering, that Avram Glazer and Joe Glazer are now getting a bit of beef with Qatar and the Rain Group, and why are these filings saying this and not this? If they've lied, they could be in trouble on that end. But one of Avram Glazer's other companies that he's a leading shareholder in is being investigated. So Avram Glazer, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about what the Glazers have been doing and why they could be in a little bit of trouble here. I feel like it's the US, it's the Glazers, they'll get away with everything. But we've got lots to discuss in today's show, as well as Casemiro to Saudi Arabia. Dan Gore leaves on loan to Port Vale, is very, very close. But Eric Ten Hag would like to bring in Brian Brobbery this month. What is the latest on that? So please do hit the like button. Of course, subscribe down below if you're new. Share the video as well. About the time the Glazers are investigated, dodges, how to say the least. The Glazers are just crap businessmen. I'll be 100% honest with you. The Glazers are rubbish businessmen. The Glazers have owned businesses that they inherited, they got given to them, and every single business the Glazer has touched has just crashed because the Glazers aren't good businessmen. They just had their dad that handed everything on to them on the plate. They have no sense of business. They have no sense of work. They have no sense of nothing. That is the Glazers for you as well. But there's so much takeover drama as well. Perfect timing. Alice missed the first few lives. I mean, to be honest, I haven't been live as much lately because it's just been so dead, because I haven't done anything in the January window, really. There's no games on, and I was like, if I'm going live, what am I saying? What am I talking about? Whereas I guess if I do news videos, I can just make them 10 minutes short and swift as well. It sounds like every rich son of businessman, just inheriting it all as well. But let's dive into the news. Let's dive into the info. If I can actually find the screen I want to get up. This is it. There we go. Working on a new laptop today. I need to sort out the camera lighting. I need to sort out a few things, but we will get that done. Anyway, so I do apologize, I'm a bit slow. I've got new buttons, new keyboard, new mouse. The setup isn't here yet, but it was said Qatari banker Sheikh Yassim is taking legal advice in the USA after claims he did not provide proof of funds when he tried to buy Manchester United. Yassim's bid team up the news that United told shareholders in the US on Wednesday that they had not provided proof of funds. So, bish, bash, bosh is getting heated. What was the news? So, let's give you a roundup. If you just to give you the context here, Ben Jacobs said a couple of days ago that Sheikh Yassim formally withdrew on October 15th, 2023. Qatar's bid consistently failed to provide customary financing commitment letters. Proof of funds is what he meant. Throughout, there was no mention of a pledged investment, and several sources close to the sale said that the reality of Qatar's offer did not match PR. So there was a shareholders meeting where they revealed that the Qatar bid did not reach the requirements to buy United, the 4.5 billion requirements, that they did not provide proof of funds multiple times, despite being asked multiple times. And they were saying in the SEC files that Jim Ratcliffe had provided, pledged investment of how on top of his bid he was going to invest this amount of money in United. But Qatar, who kept telling the media they were going to have a 1 billion pledged investment, did not include that. Qatar didn't even bid 4.5 billion is what they were saying. Qatar never provided proof of funds and never put in a pledged investment, which is a pretty bold statement. Now, when I did my live stream, I said, well, if this is coming from the SEC filings, if this is coming from the shareholders meeting, then legally this information has to be correct. I said, could this be Glazer PR spin? Yes. But I was saying, if this is coming from legal documents, then legally this information has to be correct. So it's like, while it could be Glazer spin, surely if it's coming from legal documents, Qatar might have used this for PR. Well, Qatar are not happy with that. Qatar are absolutely fuming. It was said by Mike Keegan, and Mike Keegan delved into quite a bit of information on all of this. And something that was interestingly mentioned by Mike Keegan, I think we're going to talk about. It was said by Mike Keegan that Sheikh Yassim claims he met Manchester United's 4.5 billion asking price, despite the club telling its shareholders they did not. The Qataris also say they provided the proof of funds. The group have been left furious after United's claimed to shareholders that the group did not hit the valuation set by the owners. The Glazers all show evidence as to where the finance was coming from. So Mike Keegan, who's obviously been the Qatar right-hand man throughout the takeover, he's got a source that's obviously very close to Qatar, and Qatar are telling Mike Keegan this is lies from the Glazers, this is BS. Like, they're fuming that this wasn't brought up in the shareholders meeting, because they're saying we obviously did reach the 4.5 billion, we did present the proof of funds, and we don't know where this is coming from, and they are not happy. They're absolutely not happy. Mike Keegan added to this, Qatar are frustrated that while the 237 million planned investment from Surgeon Ratcliffe's group is mentioned in the SEC papers, which is the important documents that shareholders got, shareholders are not told of Sheikh Yassim's promise and immediate infrastructure injection of around 1 billion. So what they believe Qatar is that this SEC meeting, this sales meeting between shareholders united, discussing the takeover, discussing Qatar, look, Qatar probably think this is Glazer spin, this is Ratcliffe PR. They're thinking something along this lines, because it's essentially coming out and saying they had a big fat meeting, the shareholders and all of those at United, with the SEC files, and they were saying, yeah, Ratcliffe's coming in, he's put 237 million in planned investment, la-di-da-di-da, la-di-da, and then the whole meeting they're bigging up Ratcliffe. But then they're saying, no, Qatar uses for PR. Qatar didn't show proof of funds. Qatar don't have a pledged investment. That was a lie. That was a lie. Qatar didn't even hit the asking price. And Qatar are fuming. I mean, to be honest, for the takeover to drag on for that long and to say that Qatar were never serious about hitting the asking price, it does baffle me. It does baffle me, because I do think when it's SEC filings, I think, surely you can't lie. Like, legally, you can't lie. But then I think the Glazers have lied to us for 18 years. The Glazers have lied to fans for 18 years. The Glazers want us to be bumming and creaming over this 25% Ratcliffe investment. PR wants to please fans, so they would naturally be like, okay, well, we're going to make out that Qatar were never serious. They never put a pledged investment in. They never had proof of funds, and they wasted our time. I mean, the thing is, I feel like you don't know what to believe, because we're not there. We don't know the information. These documents can't lie. And potentially Qatar have used United on ulterior motive. But the Glazers have also lied to us for 18 years about all this information. Qatar are saying they did hit the 4.5 billion. They did put a pledged investment in, and they can't understand why they're only mentioning Ratcliffe's pledged investment and not their pledged investment of over $1 billion to invest in the stadium, and that they did provide proof of funds. So either Qatar has used United for their own gain and their own PR and is lying, or yet again, the Glazers are lying as a PR spin. It is one of the two scenarios. That is the situation. Unfortunately, we're not going to know. We can do guesswork. We can assume the situation. But if Qatar are serious and they go and do legal action and they sue the Glazers, then you start looking at it thinking like, maybe the Glazers have lied. It would be interesting to see what happens, because if Qatar are reportedly taking legal action, that's when you look at it and you think, okay, maybe the Glazers have lied. It'll be interesting to see how Qatar respond to this. They're just putting out in the media that they're fuming and this is all lies. But will they respond to this? Will they take legal action? Because this could be quite serious. If the Glazers have lied, if the SEC files have lied and Qatar had bidded $5 billion and they had included a pledged investment and they had showed proof of funds, and the Rain Group had hidden that from everyone like the Glazers, then it wouldn't be a fair takeover process. It could get quite interesting, because you've obviously got James Ducker and Ben Jacobs coming out saying that Sheikh Yassim didn't even bid 4.5 billion. And that was the sort of the lowest deal that they could consider, because each share is worth $35.25. So there's so much information coming out that I don't know who to believe. I don't know the truth. I know that the Glazers lie, but I know that the SEC filings are legal and they shouldn't lie. But can we trust the Glazers? Can we trust Qatar? I feel like you can't trust anyone. I think one thing we've learned about being a Man United fan and the media is almost trust nobody, because people will use United for clicks. People will use United for their agenda as well. Alex says it's a federal crime to lose on SEC filings. If the Glazers are investigated by SEC, they'll be in serious trouble. That's a crime that carries jail time. That's the thing. Surely the Glazers wouldn't be stupid enough to lie about this. Like, surely this is like serious. Like, if they get in trouble, this is serious as well. As a rival, my understanding in this is Sir Jim was okay keeping the Glazers. Therefore, the Glazers buried Qatar funds documents and sold to Sir Jim. What SEC doesn't know won't hurt the Glazers. I mean, there's a lot of theories going about as well. As David said, green and gold to the club is sold. 47 likes. People keep smashing the like buttons. Perhaps NDA stands for no dough available. I mean, what even is this NDA? I mean, who knows? The thing is, this takeover has been horrible as Manchester United fans. Oh, the lighting's gone. This takeover has been horrible as Manchester United fans, because it's just like, well, we get told one story one day, another story the other day, another story the other day, and it feels like basically no one knew what was going on. I don't even think the Glazers knew what was going on. It was all a big mess, but the media could make loads of money and clicks and stories out of it. They could lie, the Glazers could lie, and it was all a game to see what's going to give the Glazers the most money, the most power, and all of that. And yet again, the Man United fans are a victim of this as well. Zoe says, Alice, truth, how much of what we're hearing since Sir Jim Ratcliffe's, whether it's mainstream media or socials, do you believe, with the sense of SJ and Qatar pulled out because of what's happening in me? I'm going to be honest with you with the takeover. Okay, I think the Glazers never had any intention of full sale. I think the Glazers always wanted to sell a minority stake, because they've been looking for a minority stake since 2021. They put the club up for sale in 2023, saying they'll open to full sale minority stake. I think that them attracting people for the full sale meant that they were trying to always plan and negotiate it down to a minority stake, and Sir Jim Ratcliffe was the only one willing to do this. I think the Glazers used the full sale and the Qatar bid as a front to get what they wanted out of Ratcliffe. I think that the Glazers knew that Qatar were only going to have 100% of the club, but they thought if they've got Qatar there bidding for 100% of the club, who could outbid Ratcliffe financially, maybe the way to get their 25% stake was to tell Ratcliffe he's going to have to buy 20% and get more later on, because if they're going to do full sale, they're going to go to Qatar, and maybe Ratcliffe believed this was his only way of buying United. I think the Glazers' intention was always, actually, let's see if we can get a minority stake, because I think the Glazers are the real winners here. And the reason I'm going to break this down to you is because you've got to look at it. Jim Ratcliffe comes in, okay? Jim Ratcliffe has instant sporting control, football control. Jim Ratcliffe is basically given the Glazers over $1 billion for 25%. He's then invested 237 million of his own money into stadium facilities and transfers. So the Glazers have essentially already got 1.5 billion, over 1.5 billion out of Ratcliffe for 25% of the club. He's investing his own money to make the urgent changes that need to be made to the facilities, the stadium, which is why the Glazers needed to sell the club, because they couldn't afford to do that. So Ratcliffe has given the Glazers a load of money. He's making the changes that Glazers needed to make so the Glazers can stay here, cash in a load of money. But what Ratcliffe's going to do is he's got sporting control. He's got football operations, he's got sporting control. And they've got this sort of rule that the Glazers, as of when the deal is ratified, can't take dividends out for 2 years, and then Ratcliffe will have full sporting control. And people will say, well, will the Glazers give us full sporting control? Yeah, because I think the Glazers are thinking, well, this guy, let's give him control of the football operation. So if it goes wrong, Ratcliffe gets the blame. The fans turn on Ratcliffe. If Ratcliffe has control of football operations and we're still crap in 2 years, well, that's Ratcliffe's decisions. The fans will turn on Ratcliffe. But if Ratcliffe has control of football operations and we're good in 2 years because he brings in Dan Ashworth, Paul Mitchell, and the changes that need to be made at United were made, and then Man United are good on the pitch, how much more money will we generate? Man United generate the most commercial income, pretty much top 3 commercial income of any team in the world, when they are crap, when they are as crap as they've been the last 10 years, when nothing major in 10 years. We're still at the top of generating income, and I do not count Man City's, because we all know that is false. We are literally at the top, and we are crap. If we are good again, the income we generate, the money we make is going to be levels. And the Glazers know that. They think, well, if Ratcliffe comes in, has full sporting control and gets us back to the top on the pitch, and the on-field performances improve, Man United's going to be worth so much more money in just a couple of years. Like if we won the Premier League in 2 years, we would be worth the 9-10 billion the Qatar were demanding, probably. Sorry, the Glazers were demanding of Qatar. So the Glazers see it like this. They thought, Ratcliffe's going to give us enough money to stay at United for a few more years. Ratcliffe's going to use his money to do the stadium, do the facilities, the changes that need to be made. Ratcliffe's going to have sporting control. And if he doesn't get Man United back performing, the fans will just turn on Ratcliffe because that's Ratcliffe's job now. But if Ratcliffe does get us back performing and doing well on the pitch, bish, bash, bosh, when we can, in 3 years, if the Glazers decide to do a full sale, they can get so much more money for the club because we're good on the pitch and we're worth more. So the Glazers are looking at this as we win, how much money can we get out of United situation? That's what it is. That's what it dives down to, really. In the most part as well. Please do that like button, guys, if you have not already, and of course subscribe down below if you're new. We're not at 100 likes yet. Let's see if we can get 100 likes. I will approve the lighting and stuff. This is just testing out a new setup as well. Imagine if Qatar brought in this. I mean, it could happen. People don't realize this, but in 18 months' time, the Glazers can say, adios, Ratcliffe, we're doing a full sale. And Ratcliffe can scooch over. Ratcliffe will have first say on a full sale, but if Ratcliffe doesn't match a higher bid, the Glazers can be like, adios, Ratcliffe, get out. We're going to do the full sale, which I think is an interesting point that's been raised. Now, I do want to bring something up, and I do want to dive into something. There's a little bit on a different note, but I do think this is quite interesting. And this is about Avram Glazer being investigated for some other bits and bobs. So Avram Glazer is actually being investigated right now by a few people. So I wanted to get up this thread here by Toe in the Water. And he raised some interesting points here. And obviously no one's really talking about this because this isn't being reported by mainstream media. This is just sort of some news, some reports going about, more stock exchange news, more news going about on other fronts as well. But I want to dive into this story, this little bit of information here, people. So as you can see on your screen, it was said here, interesting. Avram Glazer's Innovate Corp is being investigated by a leading shareholder / fraud class action firm. AG is the chairman and the biggest shareholder. So let's say the Glazers have lied in the SEC filings and Qatar decide to press charges and are angry about this. The Glazers will be in trouble because of that, because you can't lie in that. But Avram Glazer is also being investigated by shareholder fraud class action law firms for other companies that he is a major shareholder in. So there's a bit of Avram just is a bit dodgy. Like that's what I'm going to say. I'm not going to jump to conclusions. I don't know the ins and outs. I don't know anything about the financial law of the shareholders in the stock exchange. But from the looks of it, Avram is just a bit dodgy, isn't he? But I'll give you a bit of context to this because this is a really good thread. This was written in 2022, and he said Avram Glazer became the chairman of an Innovate Corp 2 years ago. Yesterday's results show how shares are sinking like a stone. He sold $95 million of United shares in early 2021 to help him build a 29% stake in Innovate, on which he has made a huge paper loss. So Avram Glazer sold £95 million worth of shares in United a couple of years ago so he could buy a stake in a firm called Innovate. And 2 years later, Innovate are already losing money when Avram is like the leading shareholder because he's a crap businessman. There's been a 78% price drop since Avram has come into this company. But if you dive in here as well, I won't get into all the information here as well, but you just dive in and basically the company isn't doing as well. You can go research this in your time if you want to. But basically what they're saying is now, this was a year and a half later, he's saying, interesting, that Avram Glazer's Innovate Corp is now being investigated by a leading shareholder fraud class action firm. So not only have we got, potential Qatar suing the Glazers for lying when it comes to the sort of information that's released to shareholders, Avram Glazer's actually Avram Glazer's Innovate Corp is reportedly being investigated as well. So lots of things sort of going on the Glazer side of things, which don't look good for the Glazers. Their dealings don't look good at all as well. Someone said check Avram's flight logs. Someone did do that, but they lied. The thing is, there's so much false information out there. I saw some like Twitter meme where they were saying, "Oh, this is Avram's flight logs," and then it was just loads of flights to Epstein Island and back, which was quite funny. But we can't actually report on that because that obviously did not happen. But yeah, Pat said, "I would not believe a word from the Glazers." I mean, does anyone believe a word the Glazers say? The Glazers are known for lying. The Glazers have lied to Manchester United fans for 18 years. They've used the media to put out information as PR spin. This whole takeover, NDAs were signed or not, but it was just a big lie to the fans. But the thing is, when the Glazers don't just lie to the fans, they lie to Murtagh, they lie to Arnold, they lie to Woodward, they lie to everyone. The Glazers are the worst of the worst, because as soon as things went wrong with the the Super League, Woodward sacked. Yeah, Woodward should have gone, but Woodward went because basically the fans were so angry with the Glazer betrayal of being the ringleaders of the Super League. The only way that they could get the fans to be happy again is to throw Woodward under the bus, who needed to go, but that was to save themselves. The Glazers have lied to Murtagh and Arnold these last few years, apparently, and I heard some information actually that I'm surprised hasn't been reported wider, is that actually the reason Richard Arnold walked wasn't just because Ratcliffe was coming in and he knew he was going to lose his job, but he was fed up with the Glazers. Apparently, Richard Arnold walked because his relationship with the Glazers was at an all-time low. Richard Arnold had fallen out with the Glazers. They didn't communicate with him at all over the last year and a half, and it made it incredibly difficult to do his job, but also, they didn't communicate with the staff about the takeover. The Glazers lied to the fans, but they lied to the staff. They lied to Richard Arnold. They've been lying to John Murtagh. Should Richard Arnold and John Murtagh leave the club? Yes, but I heard some things that one of the reasons Richard Arnold left was because he was fed up of working for the Glazers and how incompetent they were, and the staff were fuming because there was lack of clarity over their jobs, their future. There was so much information that those at the top were ignoring. The Glazers are the worst of the worst when it comes to sort of running a club and ownership and all of that as well. 81 likes, people, so please do continue to hit the like button as well. This might give Ineos a chance to buy the club outright because Glazers have legit reason to be pushed out. Potentially, if things get really heated, maybe the Glazers would have to go from United if they actually had been lying about big legal things. But I don't know enough about how the legal process works for me to really comment too much on it, but I have to say the Glazers could be under a bit of pressure here as well. And as I said, Alice is going into other journalists' information. We don't know that's true. Well, that's what we do on the channel. As I said, I am reporting other journalists' information. I've always said that. I report information. I say if I think it's true, if I think it's not true, I say to take it with a pinch of salt. I will say that this is said by that person. I never claim anything is true. And that's something I've always done on this channel. I'm never going to read something and go, that's what's happened. If Fabrizio Romano says something or David Ornstein says something, I believe it and I report it as if I believe it. If you've got the Daily Star claiming that Man United are going to go and make a bid for Vinicius Jr. tomorrow, I'll report on it and I'll say, guys, 99% this is not true. I'll be honest. If I report something, I'll say this ain't going to happen or this could happen. I'm reading someone else's info. I'm not saying that it's true. I don't know much about sort of the Glazers take over the legal process. You've got to remember that NDAs are signed and all of that stuff as well. I'm just saying what other journalists have reported and what might be true. But we know for ages the media lie to United a lot. When it's Fabrizio Romano, you can trust him. When it's David Ornstein, you can trust him. Laurie Whitwell's reports are normally very, very good. Simon Stone normally comes out with good information. But a lot of the other journalists, you have to take with a pinch of salt. You have to take it. Obviously there's journalists that are briefed by the club, and the information they're saying might be right, but they're actually saying that because the club has told them to put out that information, and that comes from a Glazer agenda, a PR agenda. Remember when Man United would lose games and all of a sudden we were told we were going to sign some really good player in the summer window? It's that and 4 different journalists were saying that United looking at signing this player in the summer window after we'd lost 5-0 to Liverpool. Well, it's because the Glazers told the journalists to put that out to try and cheer the fans up. I never claimed that everything we read is true. I always try and be honest with it, but I always say Romano's one to trust as well. It's Neil Ashton stood at the club feeding press pals, not a clue. American owners have ruined 4 of the best football clubs in the world. I'm a Man City fan hoping for peace in the Middle East soon, or for the UAE not to intervene in anything. I don't like to say, all American owners are bad and all Middle Eastern owners are good, because I think that's very much stereotyping owners. But I think, obviously, for the most part, the Middle Eastern owners have shown a lot more ambition than the American owners. But I feel like it's unfair to completely stereotype that. But yeah, what's as well? I think Arnold wasn't the worst of the bad bunch. Arnold wasn't the worst of the bad bunch. Like when I'm talking about Man United and I'm talking about the bad eggs at Manchester United, I'm talking about Joe and Avram are at the top. Like Joe and Avram are at the top. Like they're another level. You've got Woodward down here a bit, and then you've got Arnold down here and Murtagh down here. the Glazers are a different level. You can't, as much as I didn't want Arnold and Murta doing stuff at United, you can't lump them in with the Glazers. That would be completely and totally unfair. That they left because of, Arnold reportedly left because of frustration with the Glazers. Now, I actually do want to get into a little bit of a story here, an interesting story sort of going about in the news, and this is on the guy called Brian Brobbery, an Ajax player, a player that Ten Hag has been linked to signing a bit, a player that Ten Hag has always had some kind of love affair with, and that is said that Erik Ten Hag has the idea to sign Brian Brobbery this month. Manchester United and Brobbery highly appreciate each other. Ajax don't want to sell him. A transfer will be the topic again, at least in the summer, if Ten Hag stays. That's what I think. If I'm being honest, that is exactly what I think. Like, I'll be honest with you, and that is the weirdest noise ever. Stop signing Ajax players, especially Ajax players that aren't that good. Stop signing Ajax players that aren't that good, Ten Hag. Sign someone proper. And I think, and I'm not worried about this, and the reason I say I think and I'm not worried about this is, surely, as being reported, Ratcliffe's deal is approved by the Premier League in the next week or two. Ratcliffe brings in Dan Ashworth, Paul Mitchell, gets proper people that have control over transfers, rather than Ten Hag having control over transfers and who we bring in. It could be Dan Ashworth, it could be Paul Mitchell, it could be proper people in. And when Ten Hag goes to them and says, I want Brian Brobbery, they can be like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And they can go out there and go, look, Benjamin Sesko, 40 million release clause. Do you want to spend 25 million on Brian Brobbery? Or do you want to go and Benjamin Sesko's 40 million release clause? Benjamin Sesko, great young striker, 40 million release clause. You know, for me, look, I'm not saying that every Ajax player is bad, but I'm fed up of Ajax players. We could be getting Jordan Henderson next. Maybe he's gone to Ajax to make sure Ten Hag will want him now. Do you know what I mean as well? Oh, my. So he says the Premier League that gives these journalists licenses needed to sit in the press conference. Anyone could obtain one. I mean, look, there are some good journalists out there, but there are some really crap journalists out there. And I think the problem is people know if you write negativity around United or if you write anything around United, it's going to get clicks. Man United have the worst journalists out of the lot, or Barcelona, actually. Barcelona, definitely the worst. But the clubs like Man United and Barcelona, people know if you write any old crap about them and you make it negative, it's going to get clicks, it's going to get interactions, it's going to pay their wages. So that is why there's a lot of crap about Manchester United in the media, because it pays the wages, unfortunately. So people will write as much crap as they can as well. Can see the headlines now, daylight robbery. I mean, honestly, if we sign another Ajax player, oh my days as well. Good to hear what Glazers say they've been dumb all these while somebody's going to get whacked. Don't know what you mean by that, but cool. Maybe I misread that as well. Ten Hag gloves Ajax players or Dutch players, and then Man United signs these average players that no other club would go for and overpays for them like crazy. I mean, I think overpaying for them isn't Ten Hag's fault. It's just that we've got idiots that overpaid for Anthony 85 million. But I do think Manchester United's obsession with Ajax and Dutch players needs to calm down. There are some good Dutch players out there. There are some good players from the Eredivisie out there. There are some good players from Ajax out there, but we've gone for the wrong ones. I'm thinking, Erik Ten Hag, you're at Ajax and you've gone for Anthony over Kudus. Look at Anthony. Look at Kudus. I know Kudus can play more central than Anthony and doesn't hold the width like Anthony does. But right now, who would you rather have at United? Anthony or Kudus? Who would you rather have at United? Mason Mount or Edson Alvarez? I mean, they're very different players, but I think Edson Alvarez would have more balance. Edson Alvarez or Amrabat? Edson Alvarez, the two of West Ham's best players from Ajax. So Arsenal signed Jurrien Timber, who we haven't seen. But I tell you this now, Martinez was good, but Jurrien Timber, Edson Alvarez, and Kudus were all better than Anthony, and they all came from Ajax. And it's like, I don't mind Ten Hag signing players from Ajax if it's a Kudus, but not an Anthony. It's the one that it just doesn't. We don't seem to be signing the good ones as well. Luckhurst is elite at bad mouthing United, 100%. Every time there's a report about, like the one I ranted about yesterday. If you haven't watched yesterday's video, watch it. Luckhurst went, yeah, Wan-Bissaka's really hard because he doesn't speak much in press conferences and his media duties are crap, and you ask him questions and he's blunt. Does that matter? Wan-Bissaka's cool. Wan-Bissaka's like, I ain't messing about. I go to training, I train, I play football, I go home. I ain't talking to the media. I ain't giving I ain't giving Luckhurst a big scoop about me. Wan-Bissaka's probably like, this Luckhurst twat. He's probably thinking that. He's thinking, I just want to play football. I don't want to give Luckhurst a big article to write so we can write shit about me again. No. And I don't get why the press was hounding that Wan-Bissaka for not being talkative. Wan-Bissaka's job isn't to be really charismatic and talkative to the press or do all these commercial duties that United love or sell shirts. Wan-Bissaka's job is to kick a football, and play football well. Do you know what I mean? Why were the media bad-mouthing Wan-Bissaka for not being the most charismatic or the biggest talker when his job as a footballer? What do you want him to be? Some guy that United can plant his face all over the media and sell shirts? No, he's a footballer. All that matters is, does he train hard? Has he got the right attitude and work rate? Is he good in the dressing room? And does he play well on the bloody pitch? That's all that matters, not how talkative Wan-Bissaka is as well. Yeah, and Wan-Bissaka has the right to say nothing to the media. Exactly. And I think, I can't believe Luckhurst just thought, you know what, I'm going to slam Wan-Bissaka. And do you know what I'm really glad about? Do you know what I'm really glad about was the response. I was really glad that people weren't quote tweeting this like, oh yeah, Wan-Bissaka, get rid of him. Every single tweet in response to this was, Wan-Bissaka's a sound lad. He just wants to play football. Why does it matter? His job isn't to talk to the media. What I loved about that was everyone was quote tweeting Luckhurst thinking, nah, who cares? Wan-Bissaka's sound. He's a calm lad. He's a chill lad. He just wants to play football. He just wants to get into stuff. There wasn't people hating on Wan-Bissaka. And I don't know if Luckhurst has this, I'm going to bum Delo and I don't like Wan-Bissaka because he thinks Delo's the right back agenda. I don't know what the agenda was in Luckhurst writing that. But that is an example of the media. Well, let's say something negative about Man United player because, it gets attention, it gets clicks, it gets spin. But why are you talking about Wan-Bissaka's character? As long as he trains hard, works hard in training, isn't a dickhead in the dressing room and is good on the pitch, I don't care if Wan-Bissaka could walk into a media room and shout, "You'll all see you next Tuesdays," at all the journalists and be really rude. And I wouldn't care as long as he's performing on the pitch because he's paid to play football, not talk to the media. And I can't believe that was a report and people were ranting and claiming about Wan-Bissaka as well. Over 300 people watching, guys, now, so please do smash the likes and get involved in the chat. Wan-Bissaka's England's best defender and can't get into the England team. That says it all. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of right-back competition. I think Wan-Bissaka should have had an England cap by now. He did, and he got injured. But you've got to think there is Trent, there is Reece James, there is Trippier, who are all brilliant right-backs, to be honest with them. And that's why Wan-Bissaka can't get in. But there was a period where I thought that he should have maybe got in, but especially considering if England had a really technical attacking manager, I'd understand Wan-Bissaka not being picked. But when the England manager is Gareth Southgate, who plays the most negative football ever, sometimes I am surprised that Wan-Bissaka doesn't get picked for England. Sometimes I am surprised as well. Keep Wan-Bissaka for another season, 100%. One thing about Wan-Bissaka is, while we might need a new right-back and a general improvement in Wan-Bissaka and Delo, they can do the job. There's players at United where I'm like, they can do the job next season. They're not awful. There's players at United where I'm like, they could do the job next season. They're not completely awful. I'm happy to keep them around. And there's players that need to go. Like, for me, I'll be honest, I'd sell Anthony, I'd sell McTominay, I'd sell Lindelof, I'd sell Martial, I'd sell Sancho, I'd sell them, I'd get them out the door, Brandon Williams as well, because they are not good enough to play for United. There's players like Maguire that can be good enough when he's in form. He has had good seasons at United. There's players like Wan-Bissaka and Delo that can do a job for us next season. And for me, I'd rather get a right winger in and another striker to help Højlund, that DM profile in, that centre back in, and then go for right back. Because I think Wan-Bissaka, if you can put him against a tricky winger, that's good. I think we can get through next season without a right back. Without a new right back, but I don't think we can get through next season without a new DM, a new centre back, a new right winger as well. I know right back is reportedly one of Man United's priorities in the window, but I'd put right back as fifth priority because I think Wan-Bissaka's solid. I think Delo's solid. I don't know if they're title-winning right backs, but they're good enough to get you second, third place. They can do a job. They're decent fullbacks, and I actually think, and maybe that's just me, but I actually feel like there is a lack of good fullbacks out there. When you really think about it, like Arsenal are playing Ben White at right back. Ben White is not a good right back. He hasn't been good this season. Zinchenko is good in the games when Arsenal play teams that don't have much possession and teams against the lower half of the table. But if you put Zinchenko up against a tricky winger, he's worse at defending than Delo, and Delo gets stick for that. I don't think Delo's actually that bad at defending. You know, if you look at Arsenal's fullbacks, Jurriën Timber's good, Tomiyasu's good, but both of them are injury prone, and we haven't seen Jurriën Timber yet, and he's predominantly a centre back. If you look at Chelsea's fullback, Reece James is good, but he's always injured. Ben Chilwell's good, but he's always injured. Malagusto could be good. And then you look at Liverpool's fullbacks, and they've got Robbo and Trent. I mean, Tottenham are the only, and Robbo and Trent have been good, but Robbo's been injured all season. Tottenham are the only team that really got solid fullbacks at the moment. You look at Tottenham, you think their fullbacks are solid. You look at Newcastle and you think, well, Lewis Hall and Livramento could be one for the future. But I actually think there's quite a lack of good fullbacks out there. I think other than Tottenham, I think a lot of clubs wouldn't be 100% happy with their fullbacks. And I think Man United, for the most part, have probably got the better bunch of fullbacks out there as well. People say get rid of Martial fast. Man United need to do a big clear out this summer. Man United need to do a massive clear out this summer, 100%. I think, for me, I believe Ineos will do a big clear out. I think one of the reasons for the lack of January movement is because I think United are just waiting till the summer and there's going to be a big clear out. I also think if Eric Ten Hag goes, there could be a massive clear out. I think the thing is, the reason I don't think much is happening in January is because Ineos want their deal to be ratified. And once Ineos deal is ratified, they can pursue Dan Ashworth, Paul Mitchell, bring in who they want to bring in. But also, Ineos aren't going to make their decision on Ten Hag to the end of the season. Will we see progression between now and the end of the season with Ten Hag? If we don't, Ten Hag will likely go. So I think the transfer plans, the ins, the outs, I think we'll all get a good gauge of that come May. And I generally believe that there's going to be a big clear out at United, some big exits. But I think Ineos are just sort of waiting around to try and gauge and get an idea of where we're going to go, who's going to come in, what's the identity, what's Ten Hag's future as well. Eric Ten Hag needs to show that he can work with players that he hasn't worked with / come across in the past to be seen as a world-class manager. Yeah, I partly agree with that. What I think Eric Ten Hag really needs to show between now and end of the season is just progress. What's the style of football? What are you trying to achieve? What's the way you want to play? And what signings do you need to do that? And show me that you can play good football and improve players and get a system implementing that works. That's what we want to see as well. 25 likes away from 150 likes. Big up people in the chat as well. United Hoarders can't get rid of unwanted or unused players. We are Hoarders FC. I mean, the problem is, we do it to ourselves. When you give average players ridiculous wages, why would they leave when they know that they're going to half their salary to play football? They're thinking, well, being a footballer is a short career. Might as well collect as much money as I want. There's a reason why a lot of players gone to Saudi Arabia. Ruben Neves gone to Saudi Arabia when he could be playing for a Champions League winning side. Gabby Villegas has gone to Saudi Arabia because footballers just go, actually, you know what? I'm just going to do what's going to give me the most money. And that's the sad truth, but that's what a lot of footballers do. They're thinking, well, what's going to bring me in the most money? And that's exactly what they do. Alice, talking about fullbacks, what's your opinion on Alvaro Fernandez? Are we losing a gem there? I think we're losing a gem in Alvaro Fernandez, in all honesty. I do. I'm a big fan of Alvaro Fernandez. I think he's a great fullback. I think the fact that he's gone to Benfica says that, if Benfica, Ajax and Borussia Dortmund are interested in signing some of your young players, if Benfica, Ajax and Borussia Dortmund show an interest in your youth players, that means they're good. And Alvaro Fernandez, Kobbie Mainoo and Garnacho were the three standout youth players from 2 seasons ago. He's been a good player. Malacia's just been injured. Luke Shaw's got injury prone. If Alvaro Fernandez had played 20 games for Manchester United and we were just like, you know what, he's not good enough, he's not it, he can't cut it, fair enough. But he's not been given a chance. I think the worst part about the Alvaro Fernandez deal is he was so good in the youth ranks, but he's not been given a chance. I think he'll go to Benfica and probably be very good. The good thing about the Alvaro Fernandez deal is the Ineos stopped the deal going through and said insert a buyback clause. We've got a buyback clause in it now, and I'm glad Ineos have done that because I think he's one of those that, you know, let's say we've got a 30 million buyback clause in him. I think it's 35 million. But let's say he has 2 fantastic seasons at Benfica. He's looking like one of the best left backs in the world. All of a sudden, Real Madrid want to buy him for 50, 60 million, and Benfica trying to get 50, 60 million for him, and we've got a 35 million buyback clause with Luke Shaw into his 30s, bish, bash, bosh. We could get Alvaro back in. Maybe that's the best case scenario, but I wouldn't have sold him, particularly with the injuries at left back. Particularly with I would have probably loaned him out. But I'm also just looking at it and thinking, well, he never played for United. There's one thing selling players that got a lot of chances for United. Like McTominay's played like 200 games for United, and we just know that he's not good enough. But it's those young players that haven't even had a game for United. You know, Sedan Iqbal never really got a game. I get why Sedan Iqbal went now, because that was Kobbie Mainoo's space, and Kobbie Mainoo's got higher ceiling. But it's like we're selling players that haven't had a game. We haven't had the game time, whereas we're keeping the players that we know aren't good enough but continuously play. And I think that is the frustration there with Manchester United as well. Ineos seeking a Postecoglou appointment. I mean, look, if Ten Hag doesn't improve between now and the end of the season, I'll be all over Man United signing Postecoglou. But what he's doing at Spurs is brilliant, and I think he'd want to stay in the Spurs project longer. They're signing good young players for the long term. I think Postecoglou could do something special at Spurs. I'd love him at United, but it's not going to happen as well. Jim's work will now be worthless if the Glazers force him to sell his Ineos share after 18 months. Yes, the Glazers can force Jim Ratcliffe to sell his share, but if Jim Ratcliffe matches the offer for full sale, he can also buy the club in 18 months. So what happens is in 18 months, someone could put in a bid for United, and Glazers like, we want to sell United, but before they agree to sell United, Jim Ratcliffe has an opportunity to match that bid, and if Jim Ratcliffe matches that bid, then they can just sell the full club to Jim Ratcliffe, if that kind of makes sense, because I don't think Jim Ratcliffe's stupid enough to be like, I'm going to give them a load of money so they can stay for 18 months and then they can kick me out when the club's good and they can make more money out of the club. I don't think Ratcliffe is that stupid, if I'm being honest as well. Talk said Eric Ten Hag's really beginning to pee me off. I think his stubbornness annoys me. I want him to do well. I want him to be successful. I think what he did last season has given him a bit of time, but I think his stubbornness is frustrating, and I think his transfer recruitment of obsession with Ajax players is frustrating. Is definitely frustrating as well. But listen, people, unless there's any breaking news coming out, let me just check the news articles. Let me just make sure no interesting news has come out in the last few seconds. But I'm probably going to round up the live stream here as we've got to the 40-minute mark. I'm just making sure I haven't missed any interesting news stories coming out. Man United players on holiday training this week. Fair enough. Man United youngsters playing well. United under-18s have won every single Premier League game. Man United interested in Brian Bobbery. We've got the Arsenal game coming up. I'll probably do a second channel video on that actually, but I need to go have something to eat first as well. But listen, people, thank you everyone for tuning into today's live stream. Please hit the like button on the way out. Subscribe down below if you're new. I will be back tonight, probably later in the evening, depending on the news. So please do subscribe with post notification bell on so you know when I'm next live, probably live this evening, depending on the news. See you then. Bye.